Good morning, everyone. People are coming in to this webinar. We're gonna wait for just 1 minute so we can see how many more connect to start with this webinar of truck electromobility, challenges and particularities of charging infrastructure. So in honor of time, I think we should be starting because we have several topics to talk about today. It's such an ambitious webinar today. And we also have many speakers that are going to change their ideas and challenges with us and everything they think about with the challenges of mobility in this area of transport, which is one of the most complicated and with the most challenges to be electrified, which is a massive challenge for everyone. So first of all, my name is Marcela Castillo. I'm the sub-director of the CMS. And I am going to lead and moderate this webinar today. Also, we are going to provide you some indications about this webinar. We have right here down a box for questions and answers because we're not going to have enough time live to be able to answer them. Maybe our team will be able to answer a few of them. If there are others, we will answer them internally, maybe via email. You can leave and drop your information. And also this webinar is being recorded with simultaneous translation. Daniela will introduce you to the instructions to be able to change the language. Thank you so much, Daniela, for your explanation and instructions. So now we're going to check the agenda today. First, we're going to check the presentation of electromobility in trucks. It's going to be done by the leader of electromobility, Claudio Mena. Next, another presentation of a success case of Sotracer. This presentation will be done by Pedro Peña, who is the electromobility manager of the company. At the end of these two examples, we have a Q&A panel where we will have several speakers, Fabiana Acuña from Tattersale, Francisca Barriga from Giro Limpio, and many more. After that, we have the challenges of infrastructure of public charging for trucks. And here, Dylan Castro, charging infrastructure and energy lead of the CMS, will do that presentation. And finally, we will have another panel discussion moderated by Cristina Victoriano, who is a Deputy Executive Director of Agencia SE, where they will discuss the challenges of charging infrastructure for trucks. In this panel, we will have Pedro Peña from Sodrecer, Andrés from Darling, and Cristian Marin from ABD. Later on, we will start closing remarks with the main lessons learned in this webinar. Well, as we mentioned in the agenda, let me introduce you to the first presentation by Claudio Mena, which is Electromobility in Trucks. Please, Claudio, you can begin. Thank you, Marcela, for that introduction. Today, I'd like to start talking about electric trucks and also thank every single person that came today as an audience that is watching us via Zoom. So to begin, I'd like to talk about benefits of electric trucks, which we know are varied, but mainly I'd like to highlight the four that we see. The first is a very low operational costs. And when I say lower is in comparison to what we see in an internal combustion truck. This is precisely because the motor, the engine, is far more efficient than any diesel engine, and this creates a reduction in CO2 emissions in the transport sector, which is critical considering the climate situation that we have nowadays. And of course, this creates a reduction in the consumption of fossil fuels, which is key for security and energetic dependence of our countries. And when we create a zoom to the situation on a global level, we can see that we have over 3,000 models that are available of zero emission trucks. While there are several technologies, the main one are battery electric trucks. We can see how these are a big number in the graphic on the right. Taking that into account, nowadays we have over 800 models of medium and heavy trucks available in the market on an international level. And if we focus in electric trucks, we have over 230 kilometers of autonomy. And I'm speaking of range, which is an increase of 8% compared to 2023, with which we can conclude we don't only have more models in amount, but we are also improving the quality, which is thanks to technological innovation, which is key in this transition to a more efficient fleet. When we focus on sales, we also have a very specific situation of growth on an international level, which is focused on China. In the graphic, we can see the sales of medium and heavy duty trucks. In this year, they have sold over 90,000 trucks, but 97% are electric battery trucks. And this is how we can see the leadership of this type of technology. And when we center and focus on all sales in 2025, only 4% corresponds to electric trucks. This is why the challenge is still really difficult and there's a long way to go. Why is there a long way to go? Because in the end, logistic operators have to make a choice that is really important. When they buy a truck, they have to decide between a truck of internal combustion or a battery electric truck or zero emission truck. And what is the best choice? How should you make that choice? Basically, the business works strongly with the concept of total cost of ownership, the TCO. So what is TCO? It's a method in which you compare financially the operational cost, the maintenance cost, insurance cost, the resale value at the end of the period of valuation, and the retail price of acquisition when you buy the truck. Taking this into account, you get to know the total cost of the several alternatives. And to see it in a graphic way or a generic way, let's say that this is our truck, the first choice. It's going to have an acquisition cost that is low, but with the maintenance and operational cost is going to grow with time, which is logical. But if we compare it to an electric truck, we will see that it has a very high acquisition costs, but with the savings in time of lower maintenance, of lower operational costs. That means that at some point, the total cost of ownership is going to be less expensive of the IC truck. In that moment, we see the break-even point. We need that break-even point to exist to create this as an efficient alternative. And second, we need that point to be soon because we need to accelerate this energetic transition. Now let's go back to the Chilean context because the webinar is happening in Santiago de Chile. So let me tell you about the Chilean context. We have a very ambitious goal. We want to achieve 100% of zero emission sales by 2045 in trucks and 2035 and 2040 for heavy machinery, depending in the productive sector. This is declared in the National Strategy of Electromobility in 2021, which is our guide on a national level. You may wonder how we're doing. Honestly, not very good. Only barely 1% of sales today are electric trucks. Starting 2018, we've only sold 300 in Chile, considering everything in the amount of trucks and that go around the highways in our country, only 0.5% the electric trucks of the national fleet. To create this as a goal in 2045, it's such an ambitious goal because we are only at 0.7%. And the situation is that we are in diminishment. We are in a decrease. And why is this? Why is this so slow? Because there are limits, way too many barriers. We as CMS, we have identified at least 5 keys. First is definitely charging infrastructure that is fast and suitable. But Marcela already mentioned that in the second part of our webinar, it's completely focused on this topic, so I will not be talking about that. Second is the limited range of the batteries. This means that their effect is to limit the logistics and makes it harder when compared to a diesel truck. A third barrier that I want to highlight are the high acquisition costs that I already mentioned when we talked about the financial analysis. The fourth one is the weight limit that affects the competitiveness. Nowadays in Chile, trucks can only go around highways with a top weight of 45 tons, but we know that electric trucks have 2 tons of battery weight, which means that the freight that they can transport is lower than a diesel truck or an internal combustion truck, which is a difference in terms of freight. That difficults the financial analysis, making that breaking point harder to happen. That affects competitiveness of the electric truck as well. And I also like to highlight the shortage of trained technical personnel in electromobility and also in electric truck usage. That makes it difficult because there's this lack of trust of the users of trucks. Because what happens if the truck doesn't work suddenly? So to end my presentation, I would like to motivate you, to thank you for participating in this question that you're going to see now in your screen. And you are going to get asked, how is the topic of the barrier that you think is the most relevant in your country, which is the main limitation to the development of electric truck adoption? Those are all the barriers that I mentioned. Many of you are already answering, and I would love to remind you that we are talking about charging infrastructure, the limited range of the batteries, high acquisition costs, weight limit, and shortage of trained technical personnel. All of them are going to be talked about during the webinar. I invite you to keep participating. I think that we already have over 65% of total answers. Thank you for participating. I'm going to end this now. And right now, we should be able to see the results on your screens. Over 40% of you believe that charging infrastructure that is suitable and fast is the main barrier, followed by high acquisition costs with 32%. Phenomenal answers, because that's what we are going to talk about in the following parts of this webinar. Thank you so much. Marcela, please continue with what's next. Thank you, Claudio. Thank you so much. Let me share my screen right now. As you mentioned, we want to answer the question and define the main barriers that, according to operators and other organisms that are part of this chain of electromobility in trucks. So let's continue to the next presentation. That is part of Pedro Peña, who is an engineer and manager of electromobility in Sotracer. He's going to introduce the success case of Sotracer, the largest electric truck fleet in South America. As context, Sotracer is one of the main companies of transport in Chile. And in the last few years, they have pushed a very strong agenda in innovation and sustainability, incorporating this fleet of electric buses and also testing the first few trucks of hydrogen in the country. Pedro, please, you have the floor and you can share your screen as well. Perfect. Thank you, Marcela. First of all, thank you to the CMS, all the team, Dylan, Claudio, Mariano, everyone who has joined us in this process. We are part of the CMS, if I'm not mistaken, since last year, and we have been working in several initiatives. It's truly an honor to be able to be here speaking in front of all of you, talking about a little bit of our experience around Sotracer and in terms of electromobility.
I believe that we start with presentation mode. If I'm not mistaken, please let me know. Yeah, we can see everything. Okay, perfect. So Tracer is a company that we have more than 30 years of experience in logistics. And right now we're more than 1,400 people that we are working at Tracer right now. And we're focused in order to actually to move the charge of our clients on time and safely. Right now, we are operating in 3 points, strategic points in Chile. And with that, giving like coverage for almost all the country, we have more than 600 um, drivers in Chile. In the north, we have of the main miners in the country with the copper transport and also other mining materials. And we're going to speak about a little bit more about that, especially we have in Santiago, we have one of the biggest companies of electrical trucks working with Walmart and the agro industry sector. We also work with different equipments, electrical equipments. Right now, we have a big frame of clients with different necessities, different requirements, but we have noticed that all of them are looking for different solutions in order to not using carbon anymore in during their processes. In that sense, today with Sotracer, we are giving the next step to our clients in order to advance, to go into the energetic transition and to having a more energy, a more clean energy every day. And this is a work that is part of everybody. And us with Sotracer, we want to do a real change, especially with the range of our system of decarbonation. I don't know if you know how much does it reach, but for the companies, it's a little bit more complex because they have to align all the providers in order to create solutions or initiatives in order for them to, in order to have a lower emission, direct or indirect. And in that sense, as a Surtracer on 2022, we started with a process that is a very important process that we recommend to all the companies that today are listening to us. That is going to start the quantification or like the measurement of how much carbon they are creating. And I think it is like, I think it is a very good idea in order to know where we are situated right now in order to start with the change. And and focusing again about the webinar, I think for us is a very proud, we are very proud that a country at the end of the world is going to be able to have a float of um, trucks that is the biggest in Latin America in order to create a positive impact that is going to be all electrical. During June, with Walmart, and I'm going to start a little bit behind, but we were able to create it 1 million green kilometers. Right now it's 1,500,000 kilometers, million kilometers, and then it is going to be a big number of the carbon that has not been emitted into the atmosphere. And for us, it's a very important numbers because this has been a process that is take us around a year in order to be able to take this picture, in order to tell you guys everything that we are doing right now, because everything starts with the necessity of a client, and we align through that necessities of our client in order to look for solutions that are going to be innovative and with technology in order to add more value to our clients. We have to say that Walmart, before starting this project of decarbonation, they were not a client. So for us, it was like a double or triple challenge in order to do that because we have to create new trucks, new routes, new everything. Right now, we have 50 trucks that are operating with Walmart in Santiago, in metropolitan region, and we are working from the central distribution to the different stores in the city in Santiago, and also that they denominate like zero zone, that is like these small areas around the region, metropolitan region, in order to reach to them, because we are doing everything that we can do with these 50 trucks, with 50 electrical trucks. And we have like European brands like Walmart and Mercedes, and Chinese brands like Photons and Dongfeng. The autonomy of these trucks, it is like 200, 280 kilometers. And for the charge we are doing right now with this client that is Walmart, for us, it has worked pretty well. But not everything is about trucks. And it's not to go and buy a truck without ever thinking in order to do this kind of project. And that is what we understood, because the truck is only one part. We have to create a full ecosystem that is going to allow us to operate in a continuous way and in a fluid way with a system of truck that is going to have a different wave of propulsion in order to create like a different type of attention, especially with the amount of charge that we're going to put into the trucks. And in that sense, we need to count with an structure of charging and electrical charging that is going to be following the guidelines of the clients and the challenges that the client has. In order to supply 50 electrical trucks a year ago, a year and a half ago, it was very complex to think. We didn't have a lot of like infrastructure in order to do the electrical charge that is going to be public, that is going to exist in the country in order to give us with renewable energy in order to feed this float of trucks. Because in that sense, as a Sotracer, we decided to start with the core problem. We buy the trucks, but also we build our central of charge, and we have like 20 different charges, and that is going to give us the supply for 20 trucks at the same time, and in order to also to give us other services in our trucks. And in that sense, I think it is very important, and I think it's something that we are going to continue to discuss in the next panel. Like this charge is going to like have a discussion with the truck and also with the whole operation. And in that sense, we have decided to, in order to create like a charging system, it's going to create like modular charging system that is going to answer to the necessities of each trucks. For example, these trucks, we are going to be able to charge it from the 60 kilowatt hour to 120, 240 and 600. So it could be like an hour and a half or like 3 hours in order to do the service. It's not very good idea in order to charge it super fast if we have like the time to do it. If we have like 10 and 12 hours, especially with the service that are like during the day and then we can charge it during the night. But what happened with like situations that are much more dynamic, that we have trucks that are arrive and going like the mid of the day and they're going to have to answer to necessities to another client or another like area, we can do we can do faster charging between 180 to 140 kilowatts per hour in order to do this charge base, in order to continue the services without stopping too much that our clients are demanding. A problem that we have seen and we have realized with Sotracer is that we should create a standard like the type of plugger or like connector, as you say. So if we like CEO or GDT or different areas, us as a company, we have decided in order to advance with the European standard and put the CSS2, mm, and not only for the European trucks, but also for the Chinese trucks too. I do have a couple of minutes to continue. I would love to comment too that other projects that we have done too is that the retail area is not only, and the electrical vehicles, they're not only operate in city conditions. Right now, we have development like pilots and contract with the mining area. And on the left photo, we can see a pilot that we have developed with Anglo American. And that is going to be like transporting the copper concentrate in order to continue the sustainability, and just moving that charge into a train that is going to give everything into the port lately. So the train is going to move everything to the port, and we put the trucks into the train. And now we are moving charging that is more than 35 tons. So we do understand that right now the electromobility is a reality in the country, is a reality in the majority of the industries. And for sure, we have a lot of problems and a lot of issues that we need to continue to focus. We have to see the infrastructure, about weight problems, but reality is that we are able to answer the necessities that we have. And you can see that we have a truck that is going to give like a very weight and big charge. And the electrical vehicles, electrical trucks have a potence that is very instant and very good, that is going to be able to move like any weight of charge, and is going to be like answering all the necessities. Marcela, I don't know if there is like any question, or I don't know if we have time for questions, but I think it's that this is everything that I wanted to tell you guys, and it's like our success like experience with trucks in Chile. Thank you, Pedro. We are just in time. If you have any questions, please leave it in the Q&A. And we don't have those answers right now live. We can send it to Pedro so he can answer to you guys later. So thank you very much, Pedro, for this intervention. I don't know if you want to stop sharing your screen. Perfect. Well, can you guys see my screen? Yes, we can see your screen, Marcela. Okay, great. Just like a warning appear on my screen. Okay, thank you very much, Pedro. As you said before, you marked the importance of the ecosystem that it was needed in order to continue with the urbanization of the sector, and also the different type of strategies that you guys have used in order to create an optimal operation of the system. Right now, we are going to go with a panel that is going to be moderated by Claudio about the challenges of electromobilities in the transport trucks. So Claudio, there you can start and you can introduce your panelists. Thank you very much, Marcela. A big presentation that Pedro has just done with us. And we actually appreciate a lot his experience. And he's had been like an icon on the transition that we have in our country into the energetic like area, and all the learning that he have had. And he also told us today we have like an amazing panel. We have three people that are very important into electromobility and energy changes, especially about the particularities of the charging infrastructure and electromobility that we have right now in trucks. Today, I'm going to lead this panel and I'm going to be a moderator, and I'm going to introduce Javier Rivera, that he has more than 7 years working different like things with electromobilities, and he's going to lead project of innovation of electro logistics, and right now he is the chief of sustainability. Thank you very much, Javier, for being here today. I'm going to also introduce Fabian Acuña. He has been more than 10 years working in the energetic center, especially leading initiatives of electromobility. And right now, it is the chief of electromobility in companies under SOF. And for last is Francisca Barriga, that he has been working for more than 5 years in a system of transport that's going to be more efficient and more sustainable in our country through the program like Hit Olympia, that is going to be like a clean change, and she's going to be part of the head of the sustainability in Chile. So turn off our cameras and microphones, and we're going to have a very heated discussion today. Also to give a little bit of the introduction of our assistants, we're going to have a couple of questions and we're going to have a timer of 2 minutes. So they can speak during that period of 2 minutes. So remember that time. So in order to start, it's just to give us like an introductory round so the public can know you guys and also to see the value of work that you guys do, this push that you're going to do into electromobility. So everybody, Francisca, thank you for being here. How today the program of Hero Limpio in the electromobility, how we're going to do that change into electromobility, and what are the learnings that you have learned in these processes. Thank you very much, Claudia, for this question and for all these efforts that the center does in order to share this information of the electromobility from Hero Limpio, that is a program from the Ministry of Energy and with the area of the electromobility. And we are going to move the changing it from the charging from the trucks, not only in order to go to electromobility, but also to have a sustainable system in order to do this change. So give you like the capabilities and everything that you need to do in order to have this jump into new, more sustainable energies. And in that sense, we are following through different like axes. We have like human capital, we do like training, digital platform, the how we're going to manage the energy, but following into the actually how it works daily. We have couple of pilots, and we have a very good experience with the program Euroclima and Product 7. Then we have like a couple of testing when we saw the changes between like the difference between diesel truck and electrical truck, and we were able to see it inside what was the differences. They always like ask for a number, and they always like how is going to be the savings that we're going to have when we implement electrical trucks. But we have to see it case by case. In this case in particular, we were able to see saving like 70% of energetical like consumption. Of course, like carbon emissions, it was 100%. But we have to consider some learnings that we have had. This is like initial cost. It's 120% more expensive. That is this technology, and this is one of the problems and one of the limits that people put at the beginning. Also, the charging infrastructure, also the autonomy of the vehicle, especially in this type of operations. And we have a couple of pros as like regeneration of batteries in certain area in order to see what can we do. So in that case, what will we do in these cases is going to be able to give a more visualization to it. And if anybody wants to know more about this pilot, what we have work on detail, we are going to be able to share that information with you guys, but also it's a public record and you can apply it on your cases and what have been the good practices that we have had with everybody. Very good, Francisca. Thank you very much. And I think that it is key what Hero Olympia does in the sector. And I think it is very important in order to see what we're speaking. 70% of savings of energy that we have seen today, and the acquisition cost that today is 120% more expensive. But nevertheless, we're going to be able to see what are the advantages of that. And we need to see a little bit more of that, especially in the private sector, because we do have Fabian he comes from Tattersall, that is a company that actually sells this type of trucks. And my question today, how has been the transition of the like commercial strategy of Patterson, because they have done adjustment because we have like a bigger demand of electrical trucks. Okay, hi Claudio, thank you very much. Thank you to the center and you and all the panelists for being with you guys today. And I think that it is like something like it's going to be very interesting that it is the electromobility and whether we accept that we're doing in order to help with the electromobility and the electrification of the country. Here in Tartasol, we have decided to create a unit of business on 2023, actually, understanding what was coming, everything that is going to be with the electrification of the country, trucks, but also like light vehicles, machinery, everything. And the first step that we have done as Sutterson was to understand in order to get together also with the main factors that is going to start to giving this decarbonation challenge. It will be the demandants, for example, retail companies as Walmart, but also with operators. There are the ones actually that do the daily work with these kind of operations. And with all that information and with all the gathering of that information, we went to the companies. That one of them is Dongfeng, that we have operated in Chile, and we're going to start soon with 4 trucks in the country too. And we are going to look for products that is going to answer to the necessities of the market that we have right now. And I think that we arrive with batteries that is going to be 423 kilowatts, and before that, it was 280 or like 150 kilowatts. But we tried to do the biggest change into batteries to the biggest one. And right now in the short term, and now we are going to have some trucks that are going to be 600 kilowatts or hour, and it's going to be autonomy of like 600 and 700 kilometers. And the other thing is that we have like a special team that is going to be like working with the truck company, in this case is Statusol, in order to understand and to give it an answer of the old system that they need, not only the truck, but also the infrastructure of charging. That is very important for these cases. And that is a little bit of what we have been doing in Thorson in order to continue and to help our clients in order to do this transition.
Thank you, Fabiana. And it's very important to see this identification of the market as you see in 2023 with this brand of electromobility, and you are adapting it and bringing products that are connected to the necessities of the market. You see the truck of 400 and 500 kilometers of autonomy, which is going to be very positive to face this very limiting barrier that we have now. Javier, thank you so much for being here as well. Good morning. And my question is about how nowadays, with this logistics, we're supporting this transition towards electromobility, and what projects are you working on? Thank you, Claudia, for your introduction and for the invitation for participating in such an interesting meeting in this sector from Conecta Logística, my company. I want to say that the design of the project of the Ministry of Transport and Communications with the support of Corfo, from a few years, we created a project and we have joined the logistics sector. And the topic of electromobility is where we started the project in Conecta Logística. We have been working on it since 2020 and how the sector adapts to these new technologies, as we can say. And starting there, we have created an electrologistic experience articulated by institutions like the Ministry of Energy, the Ministry of Transport, and several other actors of the private world, like hydroelectric providers, charging infrastructure, energy infrastructure, that we are trying to support this action with practical experience and with the commitment that the data that you take from this experience will be public. Nowadays, you find it in a website, a repository of information provided by the Ministry of Transport, where you can just check the area of electromobility and see the real operation of electric vehicles in the country, where you can see what the route was, several indicators. You can even download data from that web page. There are 3 versions, Santiago, Concepcion, and we are also creating new models that have arrived to the country. In that sense, we have created the website electrogistica.cl, which is this repository of webinars, the creation of knowledge, guides of electrologistics, and where we compare concepts that in the beginning were very unknown, but nowadays have incorporated themselves into the industry. We also have a catalog of electric vehicles where you can check the last models that have participated in this experience. And also we can create an area of information, of real information, where you can get help to find and make decisions in the transition to your new operations. Thank you, Javier. Congratulations for this electrologistic program that has as a main goal complement the experience of electric trucks in Chile, but beyond that is to spread that information that is so valid to bring down myths and to bring back the companies to get motivated so we can have them in the next few years with several other companies that achieved to take this chance. Francisca, back to you. Speaking of Sotraser, we also saw your success case, but we know that Sotraser is a huge company, but it may have a different reality than medium and small companies that you also work with in your company. So I wanted to ask, what differences have you identified in these groups, and what are the main challenges and opportunities that they may have in startups that they get to improve and participate with electric trucks in Chile? That's actually a very good question because these are very different realities. Within the program, we have not really a filter. We have very small transporters that are the drivers of their trucks, that they themselves enter the data in their platforms and they trained for it. And in that sense, they find barriers of very high initial costs, the limited access to support finances, and the breach of technical knowledge that is really big. And we support them a lot in that area to be able to overcome that barrier. But they also place themselves with something in favor in which they are more agile when it comes to innovation, most of all in the segment of the last mile or first mile in this case, but also taking that to the most practical sense, we create a synergy within the company with other programs. And here we have the accelerator of electromobility, the public-private agreement of electromobility that also create a balance with these programs. On one side, the accelerator creates more access to pilots, validates technology, and it also creates access to training that is specialized. And the private-public agreement of electromobility creates conjoint efforts between state providers and companies. Many of those are connected live today in this webinar. They have participated in this agreement, which is such a great instance of networking and for knowledge exchange. I believe that is one of the most important challenges, and where we as well, from our own role, is to articulate the public-private sector. We work actively to create this transition towards these technologies that in the end is a shared challenge. And for that reason, we will be pushing in creating trust, strategic planification, so we can finally create something that we can implement. Yeah, beautiful, great work. It's key to find the support to the small and medium startups. We also mentioned the barriers and difficulties that they face, very close to what we had mentioned at the beginning, but you also mentioned something positive, which is the agility and innovation, which is so worth it. And thank you for that, Francisca. Fabian, back to you. Let's talk about the TCO. I was talking about it in my presentation in the beginning, that for this financial analysis, we study the process of acquisition and the cost of operation. So I wanted to ask you if you could talk about how these prices have evolved, and if there are several sectors in the industry where this TCO is already in favor of electric vehicles, and this is a reality that we should study soon. Yes, effectively. The TCO is what creates acceleration or not. Many have the intention of electrification. They want to do it, but if electric is more competitive, well, the market is what faces it and they find limits. So we need to make it more competitive. We in Tattersall, with the two brands that we represent, we are working in two sides. First is the acquisition cost. As you said, effectively, trucks have a very high cost of acquisition. At least in the trucks that we commercialize nowadays, we have at least 30% higher of the acquisition cost of a truck that is traditional. And that happens because we have trespassed all the losses on battery production that represents a high number in the final cost of the truck. I always compare that to the breaking point of 2018 or 2017 with the electric buses. The first two electric buses in Chile in 2017 that are operating costed about $500,000. The first 100 costed $300,000. Last year, in the last licitation, one combustion bus was costing $220,000, and electric buses too. So there's a balance. What we're looking for with the brands is to create that balance in the price of the acquisition price. So this may be competitive. Nowadays, we're really close to that price. It's a 30% above a traditional European truck. And the other thing is that there's higher efficiency in trucks. Nowadays, trucks that are operating nowadays in Sotracer, these type of trucks have a 0.7 kilometers per kilowatt per hour. And the duration of the battery that we are bringing to our trucks is close to 0.9% per kilowatt per hour. So what we are pushing is to lower the acquisition cost and creating more efficiency for every kilometer. And if this works, this may become better. And what's the consequence? Decarbonization. That's the focus that we have in the company. Wonderful, Fabian. This is very close to what we were commenting in the first part, citing Bloomberg. The amount of models, the better technology is something that is happening right now and that you are bringing into Chile, which is very positive, with the focus of finding this balance in the price of acquisition costs, because you achieve what happened in 2017 with the electric buses for trucks nowadays is really what's going to make it happen for us of the national goal of electromobility in 2045. Thank you, Fabian. Now let's go back to Javier. Moving on with the conversation with Fabian as well. What part of the logistics do you see that in Chile we are ready to electrify first? And if the challenges are different between sectors, will we find differences between them? Yes, totally. So seeing the evolution of different subsectors of logistics, the first few that we can see in electromobility have a lot to do with areas that may be smaller, that have different barriers. Where do I charge it? Does it have autonomy? And that generally has connection with urban transport, packaging, logistics, and other trucks that are three-quarter trucks that deliver foods, refrigerated electric trucks in which they advance with this technology that creates more safety to join with more electromobility in the logistics sector. In this sense, it is key to know how that learning keeps growing and in the amount of electric items that create synergy and we keep deleting barriers, overcoming. In areas of interurban trucks, there's a huge increase as well. As Pedro mentioned before, how in the mining sector with higher weight, we have pilots that use these trucks, and we can see that it is possible, and how we overcome those barriers in those areas is key. So if we think about from a logistic of urban distribution, how that is already increasing in the last few years, how that permeates slowly from long distance operations. And that is a huge challenge in terms of charging infrastructure that we are going to talk about moving on, and how that creates synergy between sectors to be able to massify electromobility. Thank you, Javier. You did mention a very important industry in the economy, which is mining, which have trouble with heavy ton trucks, in which their goal for electromobility is even more ambitious. They want to achieve the goal by 2040. We are very close to that horizon, and to have this webinar is key. You also mentioned long distance. which Fabiana also mentioned with the new generation trucks that they're bringing with bigger or more autonomy, and also charging infrastructure is key to achieve that. No doubt this will be the excellence topic in the next part of the webinar. So I invite you to stay connected so we are able to discuss this. Thank you, Javier, so much. Francisca, I wanted to ask you, do you support all of these startup companies? And also, what is the impact and benefits that you have seen in these companies associated to the program that have adopted positively electromobility? Yeah, we have benefits for the company, for the people, and actually for everyone in this environment, because directly the company will see benefits in the reduction of operational costs. The pilot that I was mentioning before, he sees the savings, the energy savings that they can get, but also there are costs related to maintenance that are reduced, also the improvement of competitiveness. And also, there are many clients that do value sustainability. There are many rules in their program that is not only made up of pilots, but also logistic operators that demand from their pilots that the transport is more sustainable, and they award and reward their technology. On the other hand, there's people that are part of the company that we don't only have the logistic teams or control, but they're also drivers and the team that is participative in the maintenance of vehicles. They also see an improvement in terms of safety, well-being, because there's a reduction of noise, of vibration because of the technology. And there's also a direct impact in all of us, because in the end, with these types of technology, we reduce CO2 emissions, acoustic contamination as well. And this has a very huge positive impact in all communities beyond contributing the national objectives that were mentioned at the beginning of this webinar. So all of these experiences, we also try to gather them because these are good practices in the end that allow these learning cycles to be redone by other companies and invite them as well to use this technology. It's key what you're saying. We talk a lot about the sector, about what does the company get, but we must not forget that companies are people, and people are the ones who live in this environment, this society, and the benefits for us are not small. It's very valuable to know about what you have mentioned, and the benefits need to be massified. That's why we're here. Thank you, Francisca, for that. Fabian, we keep talking about TCO. So I wanted to ask you about, in the presentation in the beginning, I did mention the barrier, that is the limit of weight of 45 tons, in which we know that the batteries are commonly of 2 tons, so they can transport less load. So how does this affect the TCO in spite of electric trucks? Is that a real barrier, or can we work on that? No, it's a barrier of the 45 tons. It's something that we've been talking about for years, to be able to augment the weight of every truck to benefit the electric trucks, because batteries are close to 2 tons. That means that the truck will stop being at least 10% less efficient just because they have the 2-ton batteries. Pedro was showing in his presentation that they have operating trucks in the mining sector, and they also have them in retail. But of course, in retail, you can create some exception, and retail may get more volume. And the income of these operators in the number of travels per kilometer. But if we go to the mining sector, which is one of the sectors that is pushing electromobility, the mining industry pays for moved ton. That means one electric truck added to higher price that we have been talking about. That means 10% less competitive because it may carry less freight and load. So one exercise that we are hoping to put out really, really soon maybe it's not a modification per se, but it is said that we can reach those 49 tons exactly to recuperate those 2 tons to be able to balance it and also reward 2 more tons. Create this project at least 10% more efficient. And yes, in that limit of 45 tons, it's limiting us. And this project means that is less competitive. For every 10 trucks that move around in mining, you need an 11th one to be able to move the same amount of tons. So that in the end impacts a lot. That would be ideal if we could have this modification of 49 tons.
Very interesting data that you're given to us today is a little bit more intelligent. The electrical truck with internal combustion for this issue of towns, and this focus on the public area in order to give an attention of the electrical truck. That is something very important because also to actually to push and to reward and to eliminate these barriers that today they are creating a problem around this electromobility issue. Thank you very much, Fabian, for your information. Javier, I'm going back to you. Today, we are speaking like for a fifth barrier in my presentation that is going to talk about the human capital. How from connected logistica are like covering that challenge of electromobility that it has to do with like education and the formation of the people in order to work with this type of trucks on all the areas. Of course, the electromobility is going to put us in a page that it is like to update everything in order to get like formation, like changing the profiles, and of course, like, giving like support to all this evolution that we are living right now. And where is like the 10th of July of microelectrical? What happened is we having like a stop, if we have having like an accident, if we hit or a crash or anything, we need to understand that we need to have this human capital that is going to be key in order to do all these logistical processes. As a data, for example, the technical professional area is going to be like applied as a new technology, and I have never used it actually. So there is like a big challenge in order to update not only the people, but also the educational system. Also, not only to use this educational and this information and this technology, we need to understand how this is going to be approached to the new generation in order to have a politics that is going to be more sustainable and more green, in order to see how is going to be the formation in the future, not only in the educational area, but also in the work area, in order to have it like a more green view. And we have to do like we have this webpage that is logistica.cl that is going to look in order to give you more updated information about logistics, about sustainability, and it's more like educational costs that we're working on in order to give you classes. We have videos, we have sum ups, and we have like interactive like interaction in classes in order to have all of this. We know that it's more structure and we know that it's a program that is going to be in the long term. They are more complicated in order to do, of course, but we have this technology that are advancing very fast, so we need to like update now. And now in, for example, in universities, we are going to see the logistic information that we're coming to even in the labs in order to, then they call us from different universities in order to do different theses with this data, and it's going to allow you to create like a more knowledgeable information for everybody in a change in education. Okay, Javier, you mentioned a lot of things. Um, Starting with, for example, the street 10 de Julio in Chile, they're going to have an electromobility street 10 de Julio. That is a street that is very famous in Chile because they have all the all the car parts and you buy everything over there. So it will be amazing. We have like an electrical like area in that street, but also about the opportunity because we do believe that this is an opportunity in order to create more human capital and in order to see everything that Conecta Logística is doing. It's a very important work in order to give information and to educate everybody on that. Thank you for that information, Javier. And now we are going to end up into the final stages of our panel. And we love it if we can like say goodbye with a question. This question is going to be different. It's going to have only 1 minute of intervention. So also if it could be like the more precise and concise, like and short answer possible. And we're going to start with Francisca, then Fabian, and lately with Javier. The question is, if you have to choose only one priority action for the next 3 years that is going to allow this acceleration into the massification of the electrical truck, what will it be? Francisca, go ahead. A very interesting question. Taking that to the role that we have as an agency and where we can actually have an action, we have to work with the private and public sector in order to eliminate the barriers, for example, like rulings and the technical standards like infrastructure of charging human capital. But of course, we need to have an aligning of like supplier, state providers, people, private sector in order to do everything like effective, safely, and also it's going to be able to get it bigger every day. And in that sense, we are considering also to have on regional areas different like initiatives, and we are going to continue to replicate this work in order to create the massification of the electrical trucks. Fabian, go ahead. On my side, I think they have to do more with the electrical, like energy area. We have to do more incentive in order to have like incentive to the companies that are going to put the electrical charges in the public areas because we are speaking about trucks that is 400 kilograms. For example, in China, we have charges of 1.4 megas. And when we have that information on the street, and the electrical system is going to not only help us, but everybody in the public sector and charge of 1 mega at 7 p.m., you're going to kill the company that is going to put those charges on the street if we cannot charge it because the cost of fountains are going to be diminished in an 80% in order to create an incentive in order to install charging because right now it's not a business in order to put a charger on the street because we don't receive any benefits of it and we need to put like charging of high fountains in order to put it on stops like areas on the highway so everybody can work with us and can going to do that. Do we already have the chargers? It's not going to be a barrier in order to continue to that. And that is a problem that we have with companies that are going to move into electromobility. Thank you very much, Javier. I do agree that the structure of electrical charging should be something that is going to be the most one of the most important thing, but also thinking about the big picture of how we're going to planning that. How we're going to plan that, especially like for example, the University of Concepcion of the electrical like area there and the career there. It's like for example, they're going to like a fast numbers. If we have it like 100% of electrical trucks or electrical actually car, we are going to have a country like a city without electricity. How we are going to plan that grow in order to not to affect the general people? We need to understand how we are going to create like a structure of a charging on site on the places. How is going to be able is going to be outside. How the other countries have been advancing in order to do that, but we need to take all their experience of other countries in order to take it as an understanding of how we can do it better and how we are going to approach that as a country, but also as a city, as a region, and how is going to be that electrical distribution. That is a big information, Javier. Concepcion will not have energy if all the cars will be electrical, and that is something very interesting to say. I think it's key the coordination between the private and the public sector and the institutions in order to have like a safe electromobility that's going to be safe, but also is going to go a bigger and bigger with time. But not only with that, but also how we're going to plan this energy, how we're going to have this electrical structure, and it's going to have everything uh, a have to have aligning and have to be aligned in order to make sense in our system, in our country. And the next part of our webinar, we're going to have a couple of minutes in order to talk about that too. And the Center of Mobility, Sustainable Mobility, SMS in Spanish. Thank you very much, Francisca Barriga Giro Limpio, a part of the Ministry of Energy in Chile, Javier Rivera and Fabiana Cunha. Thank you very much for the three of you guys. And we go back to you, Marcela. I'm sorry. Thank you very much, everybody in the panel. As Claudio said before, yes, between all the barriers we have seen, and the panelists also give us That will be the opportunities in order to improve the public policies in order to go further into that energetic transition. Now we're going to give pass to the next panel and to the next actually subject that we want to speak, and it will be like the other like the other side what we have been speaking into the other section of the webinar, that it has to be with electrical infrastructure. Actually, in this case we're going to see in the presentation of Dylan Castro that he's going to speak us like he's the head of the infrastructure of our center and speaking about the challenges of public charging infrastructure for trucks. Before starting with his presentation, we are going to put a question for everybody, for all the participants, so we can know what do you think about this subject. Uh, There is a question. Can you confirm if everybody can see it? It will be, what is slowing down the installation of electrical truck chargers along interurban roads today? We have five option: lack of power supply, permits, construction and connection with utility companies, low demand, or lack of suitable areas or rest stop, or safety, or others, if you have any others that you can think of. And if you can like answer those questions, we're going to give you a couple of seconds to answer. It's very fast. Just let me know when we are ready in order to put the answers in our screen of all the participants. I think that we have the answers ready. Well, it's a very content. We see in like the low demand of them with a 33%. Also, the different permits and construction connection with utility companies because maybe they're too big. And finally, with the lack of electrical supply, security, safety, and others are very, very far behind. So we are going to see these topics in the next presentation, the one presentation, and I'm going to give you the word to you, and also the screen. Thank you, Marcela. Please confirm if you can see my play working correctly. Yes. My name is Dylan Castro. I'm the lead of infrastructure and energy lead. Here in SMS, I love that we have more than 130 people today. I think it is a lot of interested, and a lot of people are interested on these issues. We have spoken already about like electrical trucks, but the second part is to speak about the infrastructure, electrical infrastructure. As we said before, is something very important. And we know from the people that we are in the sector is something very important in order to decide if you are going to electrify like complete floats of trucks and to choose electrical trucks. And I will be well with the challenging in order to charge the electrical trucks, giving just a little context that is very fast. And then I'm going to give you what is will be the challenging and what are the different like levels of problems that we have with a light vehicle to charge a truck. So, and I also will give you some like useful tools and information that we have gathered in this period of time in order to improve this situation, in order to give you like a close up with final remarks. In this context, we spoke in the other panel is that the trucks are a very important part of our work in the country as we move charge in the country. More than 90% of the country are in transport by truck. And that is something very important in order to densify that float. And as we said before, the demand right now is very, very low. And as we said in Chile, the transition is just starting. And if we speak about how many trucks, electrical trucks we have right now, is 60,000 trucks in the country, and only 296 are 100% electrical. And we have also seen that the reason of the presentation that the infrastructure of electrical charge is very, very difficult, and it is going to be a stopper in order to travel long distances. Why is this different? Because it is a high scale when we speak about charging trucks. And there's like four key aspects. There are much more, but these are the main ones. And I'm going to give you like like a slow comparison of how we do it with light and medium vehicles with a heavy duty vehicles. First of all, it will be the space and the parking space. Of course, the parking space is very expensive. And when we have to charge a truck, the area changing. And I say like 9 times more. When I said like 9 times more, I mean like a light and medium vehicles, it were going to be 2.5 meters to 5 meters. And when we speak about a truck, just the long area of the truck is going to be 20 meters easily. So we pass from an area of 12.5 square meters media to 100 square meters media. So also we need to take into consideration other things on side of the infrastructure of an electrical charging area. We have to think about the flow, and the flow it's very different because the trucks use much more space, and also the wide turning radius. And also we have to move and maneuver in different ways, and that is going to make us, in order to change everything, we have to get everything more wide in order to charge trucks. And especially with parking, this is like something that you can see right now. When I said like everything is bigger, also not only into the parking space, but also the battery size. A battery of a car will be like 50 to 60, and an electrical truck, the capacity of the battery is much, much higher to 250. It's not only because of the vehicle, because we're moving the charge also that it is in the truck. So we're going to speak about with the battery of one truck, it will be, for example, a photon, right? It's going, a full car truck, it will be 250 kilometers per watt. And also that is going to affect the weight of the battery, because in a car it will be 500 kilograms more or so, and then a truck is going to be much, much bigger, and it could be easy 2 tons. Another technical aspect that we have to see when we want to charge trucks, the range of operation is quite different, because we're going to charge a vehicle. The charger has to communicate with the truck in order to connect and to create the charge. In cars, we're going to see that it's going to be around 500 volts. But if we wanted to charge with that same charger a truck, it would not be able, and it would not be possible to do it, because the battery of a truck, the voltage is quite different. Out of a truck is going to work in a very different voltage that is 800, between 800 and 1200 volts. And not all the chargers reach to that level of tension and that and voltage. So, and that is going to be a problem, because we cannot use the chargers that are right now in the infrastructure, the one that are installed in the last period, are the only ones that have like a higher voltage, but the other ones, all the ones that we have that are the old ones, can only charge cars and not trucks. And that is a problem for us too, because we need to think about the future, how we are going to continue to renew those chargers that doesn't work for us actually, and we have to reach our level of voltage that we require. And we're going to speak about that on the panel of discussion later. As I said before, it also changed in all order of magnitude, also the charging power, because it could be like 3 kilowatts, can be Alvin charge in the house or in the public area with between 22 and 250 kilowatts of like power. We cannot do that in a truck, because it's going to take us like forever to charge. And that means that like the requirements the requirements are very different from a car to a truck, because you cannot do it in the house, because that means that we need more than 150 kilowatts or 200 kilowatts actually to charge a truck in a good time. And that means that that necessity of charging faster is going to create development in technology and innovation, and we're going to see them actually a little bit further. But we're going to see there is a different type of charging the vehicles. They will be the MCS, megawatt charging system, and it is a complete game changer into this charging system, because it's going to be also the change of the order of megawatts. It will be 3.75 megawatts. That it will be actually the weight. For example, a building is going to ask for only 1 or 2 megawatts, and now we have almost 4 in order to charge our electrical truck. So it's a completely game changer in the order of magnitude that we can do and we can have right now. But in order to charge vehicle with this high potence means that everything has to be bigger. The transformer, the pluggers, chargers, everything. And that is going to be the investment cost is quite higher. The also the parking space is much bigger. Everything is going to be more expensive. And also implementation times are going to be quite bigger. Because, for example, in the agency, when we need to have, like, for example, the permits and everything in order to have a house charger, it could take like a 3 months in order to have those permits. Imagine how long it's going to take us in order to have these 4 megabytes infrastructures in order to have it, the permits to it, because we didn't thought about that. I don't know how long it's going to take that. Having said that, we do have some like good experiences and we have good practices in order to help us out, in order to prepare for the future. And for us, it's very important to see the German case where we're going to see that they have like a follow, like a very coordinated system and how they have done, because they do have like a control center, and that is going to be like a dashboard that you're going to see not only the places that you can see the green areas where you have like truck infrastructure in order to charge them, but also they let you know where they're going to be the future charging places. So here you can say that it's going to be planned and where is going to be the structure in the future. And also you can see where going to be the high like power areas, the ones that have like a higher like going to be like a higher space in order to have like different trucks of different like sizes, and also not only to give you the one that are already installed, but the one that are going to be planned and are going to be put it in the future. And they change them constantly. And for example, if you want to apply or if you want to have like a state help in order to do those in the future, you can know where they're going to be put it as a plan, and you can put it there with the state help. Other information that is very useful is not only to put the structure for trucks, but also have like renewable forces or varieties. It's very important to speak about that because it's going to reduce the problem of the net, and it's going to be that the power is going to get lower because the charge is not going to be marking the area and plan is going to create peaks. But if we can only have it like a manageable charge, it's going to be have like a lower peak of potence, as you can see on the pink line. And also we need to simplify and we need to be much better in order to do all these, in order to reduce the stress and the problems when we have in order to do this structure. First of all, is that we need to have like fast chargers in order to be used during the stop of the drivers, actually, and the race of the drivers. Also, the implementation and the infrastructure has to be changed. Also, the implementation of electrical trucks in urban areas is attractive, but it demands also that we have to change into this enabled condition as it's the fast charging work. And for the purpose needed is interoperability, real-time public information availability, payment solution, roaming, and in order to improve the user experience. And finally, and my message before starting with the panel is that the electrification of trucks present a unique opportunity to decarbonize the freight transport, but it requires acknowledging its particularities and acting in a long-term vision. Thank you very much, and go ahead, Marcela, with the panel. That is going to be very interesting, and we're going to speak about a couple of things that we have already spoke right now.
Thank you, Dylan. Thank you for explaining the main challenges and also several international experiences on how charging infrastructure has advanced in the area of public infrastructure for trucks. Now, I want to share very short information. We know that there are several questions in the chat box in the Q&A section. Can you leave as well your emails so we are able to send you the answers? Or maybe You also have access to the webinar in the website of the center. So we are going to habilitate a document with all the questions and answers for them so they are available for all of you. And as Dylan said, we now will begin with the next panel, which is called Electromobility in Trucks, Challenges and Particularities of Charging Infrastructure, moderated by Cristina Victoriana, Subdirector of Agencia SE. He has a very long trajectory in energy efficiency and sustainable transport and is key in public policy creation that promotes transition in Chile. Now I give the floor to you. You also have to share your screen and open your mic. Thank you, Marcela. I want to thank you before anything else and thank the CMS for inviting me to join and moderate this very deluxe panel with such an interesting topic that Dylan has been talking about and that opens several questions and challenges and doubts. So the first part is to introduce the panelists that are joining me today. Let me do that in the order of the pictures. Pedro Peña, manager of Sotracer, a company that has over 30 years of experience, operates the biggest fleet of electric trucks in South America. Later, we have Andres Berentin, ambassador of Chariot for Chile, CEO and founder of Denmark, with a lot of experience in sustainability and electric transition, has experience in great part in the public fleet in Santiago, and Christian Martin, manager of ABB Chile, a pioneer in electrification of transport, but in other areas as well. Provider of technology for the first electric buses and electro terminals, a reference in charging infrastructure. Welcome, everyone. And I am going to start this panel with a different perspective regarding what Dylan had mentioned. What are the main challenges that electrification of transport faces? So I'm going to start with Pedro, talking about this very recently published National Infrastructure Plan published in September 2025. Will there be a duplication in 2035 in a country where over 95% of freight is moved by truck? And from your experience, what's the biggest challenge that we have to electrify heavy transport? Yeah, great question. It's nice to see you again, Cristina, in this webinar. Also, hi, Andres. We have shared several conversations, shared opportunities in projects. Also, Chris and Martin, we have been partners in several panels as well. So I believe the main barrier that we have today for electrification, as we have mentioned in several other panels, is a lack of charging infrastructure that is important for this type of vehicle, as Dylan mentioned, vehicles that operate with batteries with high tension, which requires infrastructure that works for it, and also creating charging infrastructure that is collaborative. We developed our own charging infrastructure, but as we mentioned in another activity, in Chile, we only have 65,000 transport companies, give or take. And if we think about developing charging infrastructure one by one with the trucks that are around 225,000, according to the last survey, we should be able to have 200,000 chargers as well. So it's not happening in terms of power, of location. So I think one of the challenges is charging infrastructure, power management, being able to install chargers on route that allow us to habilitate inter-regional transport, and also the speed of charge, in which Christian and Andres can share more on the new trends. The speed of charge is really important. We can't stop. We do have some safety concerns in Chile as a country, but If we stop for over 2 hours between travels, it's hard. So chargers of 1 megawatt or 700 kilos become a real necessity nowadays. Thank you, Pedro. We will go farther in that area. I'm going to move on to Christian this time, and I would like to ask you from the perspective of ABB, what are the challenges to massify charging infrastructure for electric trucks in Chile? Hello, Christina, and everyone who's listening and watching. It's so nice to participate and be part of this panel. Well, challenges are many, but I believe that there's a key part and a key word, which is collaboration. The topic of electromobility and trucks is completely a collaboration and it needs to involve all actors in the market. There could be state participation, maybe not thinking that transport is also a benefit for interconnection between regions. There's a direct impact to particular companies, but transport reaches citizenship and it becomes relevant, mostly in the country, which is so long. Being able to have this form of transport and decarbonization is fundamental. So there's a collaboration topic in the side of the state. It's important to make it a part of it, just like it happened with the buses. And on the other hand, we also need legal rules that ensures that the infrastructure and its quality needs to be safe, needs to be good enough. That is fundamental. Electric safety in infrastructure from a charger that is 1.2 megas needs to be safe. We cannot look down on the idea of safety, trying to find just low cost, but we need to make TCO attractive, but prioritizing safety of operations because in the end, that is what makes something important. Thank you, Christian. That is a very interesting perspective on security and collaboration. We're going to talk about those topics as well. Andres, in Chile, we do have experiences with electro terminals and buses. You have been part of that. And I would like to ask you, what differences you see in design and operation of electro terminals for trucks, facing what we have faced so far in public transport, mostly in the metropolitan region? Hi, Christina. Thank you for the invitation. And also, hello to every single panelist that I've met before several times. Hugs to everyone. So, honestly, in reality, the main difference is operation. How it operates, that's the difference. Usually, public transport buses have cycles. They stop at night, trucks operate differently. Most of all, if we're thinking about covering routes of short and long reach, which is the expectation that we have, what you need is precisely what Pedro was talking about, and Christian also mentioned infrastructure on route. Not only considering that we all of us are going to need a terminal and you're going to have 200,000 chargers everywhere, because it's something that probably won't happen like that. So the conception of how vehicles operate, the processes of charging of a truck that is maximum of 1 hour. And in general, for buses, it's 3 hour charging period at night. But for trucks, we need tops 1 hour. So these are very different elements. We have elements in common, of course. For example, usability, income, and structural elements that make it easier to move. And other elements like Dylan mentioned, in terms of power of energy, we see terminals in Santiago that are 5 megas, 10 megas, 8 megas. And that also has several in common elements. So the initial idea, it has similarities, but the operation makes it different. And we need to consider all of those additional elements. Thank you, Andres. I think that with this, we have the first idea of the challenges that we need to overcome to start thinking about integrating this charging infrastructure for trucks. So we are in the first level of the challenge. I want to bring you to the topic of standards and technological innovation. I'm going to start with you, Andres, with the MCS standard developed by Charing for electric trucks. I understand that promises powers of over 10 megawatts. Tell us a little bit, what does this bring with the new standard of charging? How do you see it for Chile and Latin America? And what factors do you think should be solved before they reach a higher scale? That's a very important topic. I'm going to go a little bit back. I think that what the industry wants is that if you read between the lines of what we commented, in operations, when you create the migration from a combustion vehicle to an electric vehicle, is that the impact on operation is minimal. And for that to happen, the charging times need to be similar. So you need to charge a vehicle of great proportions and great batteries in 15 minutes or 30 minutes. To achieve that, you basically need a autonomous vehicle of at least 400 kilometers. You need to charge that in 30 minutes. So at least 1.2 megas at the tip of the connector. So with this issue inside in Europe, they developed, well, they realized that the MCS is good for vehicles of higher ton. The older was not enough, so they developed the MCS, which has two characteristics. One of them is that the power of the matrix of the vehicle is over 2000 volts, and over that you have higher currents. What that allows is that you charge between 1 or 3.5, 3.7 megas. We could reach 4.7 megas. The challenges are massive because from the start you have to have availability of set megas where you are going to be installed. And after that, you need a grid with enough density in the area. And also, basically, when you add 3 or 2 megas, you hope that the grid doesn't just black out and stop working. So there's a challenge of infrastructure, distribution, storaging, if there are issues of higher demand. So there's a bunch of challenges. I think it's going to be a game changer, but I also think that we need to do our homework first. And I'm going to let everyone else to give their opinion on this. Yeah, we're going to talk about the same topic with Christian because this standard does bring challenges. And from the point of view of the infrastructure as it is, how do you see these challenges and their arrival to Chile? Well, Christian, ABB has been working for 5 years in the MCS, in the megawatts charging system. So the first thing we did in 2020 was a recollection of necessities, of the needs of the truck operators to understand what type of infrastructure they needed. So between 2021 and 2025, we worked together with turning IES, trying to find solutions as well. We created the first prototype. And in this year, we did the first launch of a public charging system for high power trucks. So the challenges here are massive. This was talked about before. The topic of safety, electric safety is key. So much so that the requirements of standardization is crucial. So, for instance, from 1000 amperes to zero current, the transition needs to be under 3 milliseconds. So there are technical requirements that are so important that create a demand that is crucial in charging infrastructure. One thing are technical requirements, for instance, how fast it is. Second is that the quality of said power is in agreement with the interoperability with the truck. It's a little bit technical, but there's, for example, a specific process of the entrance of current into the bus that needs to be lower than 1%. The requirements are different. Andres mentioned it. There are different elements. So, in the last part, let's not forget about efficiency, because efficiency in energy consumption is what means that the project is actually worth it. Yeah, there we see savings, there we see that the project is viable. So I'm going to ask the next question, which I think is very connected again. We need for trucks continuity of operation. Andres also mentioned it. We need this operation continuity. So, from the point of view of ABB, what are your strategies that you use to secure these high levels of availability of your charges with the current experience, and how does remote assistant come to play? Well, that's a massive, very important topic. What did we do with this new family of charging systems? The first thing that we did was to create a real-time monitoring. We are speaking about 10,000 transactions per second of interactions with the systems. That's the first point, to secure that what you're seeing online is exactly what is going on. And that's the first point. Another relevant point has a lot of correlation with testing times. If we do a testing for 500,000 hours that are equivalent to 50 years of operation of a charging system, so we created an accelerated testing of the infrastructure as to guarantee that the time of this equipment it's close to 99%. So there's a lot of work of 5 years of development to reach to this type of solutions that need to be robust, that doesn't have a lot to compare to a equipment of 50 kilos or correlated to the standard of the market. It's a very personalized situation, thinking about the industry, which is collaborative with the different governments. It's not really about each one creating their own infrastructure, but to create this infrastructure to be communitary and to be able to open it for different providers and to separate those costs for the different players in the market.
Thank you very much, Christian. I think here we were able to make a vision that is going to show you what will be the technical like challenges that we have. And I would love to speak about something that Pedro already answered at the beginning on the first question. It has to be with the business models and like the government, how we're going to do in order to make this a reality. And from this sense, Pedro, we have seen like these um share charging station in between like multiple operators in order to like put this money into in order to create the infrastructure. How do you think that in Chile and with the experience that you have with the trucks transport service, this can work, or what will be the risk, or which opportunities can you see in order to have that as a reality in Chile? Yeah, it's very surprising what is happening in Europe, and I do think that it's very interesting the business model they have been able to do it with the public-private charging stations in the country in order to coverage all the electrical needs, and first to do a calling to more companies that are going to start doing these initiatives, that are going to learn and just like leave aside the fear in order to jump into this because they're very trustful like trucks. And of course we have some like challenging due to the technology advancement, but in order to develop those infrastructures in Chile, we are not very far away from that. We are starting with like these system and we are moving forward with electromobility in trucks. And I do assume that next year we do believe that we will have some charging stations similar to Europe or in China in order to charge high ton trucks in a normal way. And that's not going to be something that is going to be like a NASA kind of thing. And it's going to be like a normal thing. We are a very privileged country in that sense. In order to create the electrification, and we have one main road that it is like Route 5, that it covers the whole country. And that is going to be allow us to create different charging stations at different points, and we can add more like areas and to create more electrical routes. It's not like a minor issue. Of course, we need to take into account the battery, the voltage, and all of that, in order to continue in a more technological like area that is going to create like micro nets in order to create like a system with batteries, not only with like normal electrical system, but also like air system, sun energy, air energy, and all of that, not order to have like some problems in certain places, but you have coverage in everywhere. Thank you very much, Pedro. I would love to continue with you a little bit. With this, the possibility that through the concessions, that the stop areas in the highway are going to be points in order to put chargers. Do you think that that is possible in order to create that model of business, and how we're going to be able to do it in different areas? It make complete sense in order to create this infrastructure in areas that are going to be already as stops areas on the highway. And in that sense, we do need to start to speak about with the different actors that have the concessions of these infrastructures in the country, and also with the different suppliers that have in the different like areas of the highway. But I do believe that is something that is very possible to do. Maybe we're not going to fix all the problem and all the challenges that we have right now with the structure of like stations, electrical stations, but I do believe that it's a very starting point, and we have to add to new technologies in order to charge faster the trucks, and maybe we can have it chargers like one mega truck charge in between 10 and 15 minutes, and I don't think it's like enough time in order to get off the truck, go to the bathroom, like to rest for a couple of minutes, and then continue with the route. Understanding that we do have like maximum time of conduction that we need to respect for the truck drivers. Andres, can you tell us what is your view about these share charging stations? How do you think that we're going to be able to apply them on Chile? I think it is something that is going to happen. According to my beliefs, there is going to start to be in two lines. The first one is going to be with the group of private companies that are going to start to create like charging stations that are completely electrical. And then the second one, it will be the companies already have service on the highway. For example, if they travel in the highway, then we have like services of different brandings that generally have an area already that are going to be for like normal vehicles or like light vehicles. And on the back, they have like the area like for trucks. And that is something that we're going to see, for example, in 2026. And we're going to start to see it very, very soon, 2027 tops. And we're going to, that is going to start to happen in interest zones. These areas that have like combination of routes that are going to be 500, 400 kilometers. I don't think that we're going to have like charging points that are going to be from the north to extreme south in Route 5, but I do believe they're going to start to be in the strategic points. For example, in the radio, Santiago area, Rancagua, that is right next to it, 100 kilometers around Santiago. San Antonio, 150 kilometers. Big Concepcion, there is going to be 350 kilometers south, a mining zone in the north of Chile, and we're going to start to see these areas of activation where these routes or these like green corridors are going to start to be developed. And then we're going to have to see two possibilities that is going to be a group of private area or like companies that are going to start to work as a CPO, and they're going to start to create and going to do like specialization on it and going to work in heavy machinery. and we're going to see what is happening in Europe. I think that you're very optimist thinking that it's going to happen the next year. So hopefully we're going to have these strategic points in the highways next year in order to have like this global view. We do have technological challenging. We have from the government, from the rulings, and also how we're going to have these expectations from the transport of the charging transport system. Thinking of each one of them, if you're going to have to decide the priorities, what we need to do first in order to go forward in these issues of electrical infrastructure. And then we're going to have, and we're going to pass the trucks that have with diesel now to go into the electrical charge. How and what can we do first? Christian, it's a very good question. What is the first thing that we need to do from a technological point of view? We already have the technology. Companies as us, we have developed this technology thinking about this. Now we have to also cut more involvement of the different factors of the area, especially of specialization and creation of infrastructure. We need to have more involvement to the electrical companies. I do believe that is a key part of it. It cannot be something that is going to be a filter at the point of of charging inside of the infrastructure, because we already have companies as Fabian told us before, like we have trucks of like 1600 kilowatts, and a lot of companies of European companies are going to have like 100 kilowatts hour per battery. They have already like at their disposal in order to bring it to Chile. We need to have to move forward, and we need to go ahead of the move and to start to do it. What we're going to be our capacity of electrical capacity, especially with the electrical companies and like the suppliers of energy. And we need to take into point that of about the permits also, and we start to think in advance. This point of charging is going to be like, as Fabian said and Andres and Pedro said, like it's going to be like specific points in the areas, in the different areas. And I think that we need to sit down, we need to plan this. It cannot be random. And of course, we're going to have a transition. That is something that is going to be from the date that is going to be implemented for 400 kilograms. And then I'm going to have the other section of the trucks that is going to be 1 megabyte. So we need to have the infrastructure and to be ready for these future changes. And the infrastructure that we're going to use, it has to has like this capacity in order to scale it in the future. We cannot think about only the present. We need to think about the future. Thank you very much, Christian. Pedro, from your point of view, what will be your priorities? How we are going to start? I will say that what Christian said, that technology today is moving very fast. It already exists and it's going to continue to surprise us. And we are very like in an early stages of the curve of development. And I do believe that we're going to continue to be gladly surprised by it. But I think that what they have to have like a discussion, the not only technology but also the laws that we have in the country in order to move forward in a concrete way and like in a regulated way in order to have electromobility. And I do believe that in this sense, we need to reach to an agreement and we need to organize ourselves in order to have one quality of standard quality, because we have like a lot of gray areas. We're going to have a lot of like trucks with one standard, another ones with another one. And it's going to be much more complex in order to be able to charge all these different type of trucks. And another thing that we have speak about this webinar is that we need to have different like improvement with the weight by X from the we have like the new law from the 80s, and we have had like a lot of years since the 80s, and we need to change that for sure, and we need to change the norm in order to have a competition of the equality of conditions. That means because the norm does not allow us to do it, we can reach these amounts of like charge, because the difference that we have with diesel and that is that we don't have the amount of like weight that we need to fulfill in order to have new electrical trucks because they are like much heavier, and that is the problem. We need to change the norm and we need to change the law in order to have a new law that is going to be much more flexible. That is the case of Europe, that is going to allow us 2 tons, 2 extra tons for trucks of services, and also to maintain 2 tons in order to have more electromobility in the country. We need to change it. Thank you very much, Pedro. The same question, but I'm going to take something that Pedro said. Shall we have only one standard? How do you see this? I completely agree with that. I have fight through because I want that all my life, and I will actually believe that GT should be on the street. We need to have a standard. Could be that at the beginning we have like a standard at the beginning, and we have like cheaper vehicles that are in the country. And then you have the case of Colombia that right now we only have 5 point of charger for like a bunch of electrical cars. They are not able to charge. It doesn't make any sense. And they pass from CG1 to CG2, and it has complete disaster. I do believe that we need a standard in the country to have different, like the only one have type of charger and weight of doing it. And I think that the laws in Chile have been walking and have going little by little. It's different to create a norm of something that is moving so fast, but I do believe that we need to continue to be like that. And one of the challenges is, of course, the norm, and the next challenge is, of course, what I will do in order to create this. It's just define like zone of interest with segmentation of routings from routes. And in order to take it in a certain point, we did it with the buses actually. We created a business model and we created like cities of interest where the mileage of these areas have like certain like features that is going to create like a total cost of property is going to be rentable, like it's going to be something that is going to be reasonable for us, and it's going to create like earnings. And in Chile is something that we have done. And for me, it will be, I'm from the extreme south actually, and I would love that the extreme south we have like electrical chargers in the route, but I do believe that is something very difficult, and the amount of necessity with that, it's going to have to be like a lot of like state help in order to do that, and the private sector doesn't make any sense. But we need to sit together. We need to put it into data, into quantify like information in order to learn from the past, and also in a structure and create a strategy of electromobility that we do have like trucks that are going to be like lined with specific routes that is going to create a system that the operator, the logistic operator, they're going to erase the risk, because we do have the cost of risk. That is something that I'm not going to do. What I'm going to do, how we're going to do it, how we're going to do it if we need to sell the trucks in the future. I think that is the idea, and I will follow through that. Very good. There is a lot of things. It's not only one challenges. It's not only one factor. It's not only one thing where you're going to have to do a lot of things, and we have to work collaboratively. And that is the issue. And I think that if we have to create like a lot of view together in order to make a reality. And I do appreciate Pedro, Christian, and Andres for sharing your experience to give us a little bit of your vision. And thank you very much to this SMS for their invitation. And I'm going to give the word to Marcela in order to give the closing of the day.
Thank you, Christina. Well, thank you everyone who participated. Thank you, everyone. I hope I don't leave everyone behind. Javier, Francisca Barriga, Pedro Peña, Andres, Christian, and also Cristina, of course, who was present in the last panel. Thank you to Claudio, to Mariano, and Dylan from the CMS, who were present and organized and were in charge of logistics of this webinar. So I will leave here the website of the center, everything social media related, so you can follow us everywhere. And as I said, we will try to post to publish a document with the questions and answers that we couldn't address live. So thank you, Grato, for interpreting. We're there in the English and Spanish channel. And we will see you again for the next webinar of CMS. Thank you, everyone.